Welcome back to Sonore Audio. Today we're looking at the future. The future is now, because here, right now, we have the NAD C298 power amplifier, stereo power amplifier, Class D. Why is the future now? Well, for the first time in my audio life, I have found a product that sounds as good as Class A and Class AB in many ways. Not in all of them. We will cover that off today, but this is good. It's really good, and believe the hype. It is fantastic for the money as well. It retails for £1,699, just a pound shy of £1,700 in the UK, and you're getting something that is an equal of something that is twice, maybe even 3 times its price. It is a really, really, really good unit, and we'll get to why in a moment. First of all, let's have a look at the product. As a stereo power amplifier, it is pretty basic, right? This is just the grunt, the horse, the sort of, the powerhouse of your system. So don't expect it to have lots of features. It is pretty straightforward, but it does what it does well. It's, you might notice, quite big, and I think that was the first thing that struck me about a Class D amplifier. I'm normally used to quite small units, the Mytek Brooklyn Amplifier Plus, for example. I could pick up with one hand, wave around. It was very dinky and cute indeed. This is neither dinky nor cute. In fact, this big box weighs just over 11 kilograms. And you need to go to the gym to cart it around. It's not what you'd expect from Class D. It's a nice kind of metal box. Doesn't look particularly sexy, does it? It's very much the NAD way. It's utilitarian, pretty boring. You wouldn't show this off to your neighbours or your mates, but what it does, you would show off to in sound. So moving around the back here, let's spin it round. On the front, by the way, you just have a power button, unsurprisingly. On the back, if we just look over here, we have XLR inputs or RCA inputs, and you can toggle between the two. You also have line out if you want to use it, and you have variable gain input with this little knob just here which you can tweak and turn around, and most people just leave it on fixed and it will automatically just work as you need it to. You also have an auto sense level for the trigger for turning it on, which can be low, medium or high. I've just left it on medium for most of the time. Pretty straightforward. You've got a grounding post at the back, and then you have your speaker terminals, which are a bit cheap and plasticky, to be honest, in terms of their construction. They're not the nicest, and also you'll notice they are red and blue and not red and black. This kicks out 185 watts at 8 ohms and 340 watts at 4 ohms. This will power any speaker you like. It's not going to have any problems at all. It is a monster when it comes to power, and a bit of a monster to look at. It's not really very pretty, but I don't care because it sounds brilliant. What do I mean by brilliant? Well, let's talk about that power first of all. It has a cast iron grip on bass. Bass can be very, very fast. It can be very deep. It can have lots of texture and detail. It can have impact with this amplifier. It powers difficult loads. It powers easy loads. It doesn't care. The bass on this is as good as that I had out of the Hagel H590, which I reviewed a while back, and that of course is about 5 times more expensive than this. Now that amplifier is an integrated amplifier, super integrated, does a lot more than this, but for pure bass it is on a par with that amplifier. It is fantastic. I don't know if I've heard anything do bass better than this. Did I mention this cost £1,700? I think I did, didn't I? Yeah, this is really, really good. Moving up through the mid-range, it's very transparent, it's very neutral. It will play back whatever the source is in front of it, and it won't add any coloration or any personality of its own, which means you're going to get what I call straight wire with gain. You know, it's that kind of traditional, just amplify the music, don't do anything to it. Now, a lot of amplifiers actually do add a little colour, and sometimes that's quite good. With tube amps, for example, I'm quite a fan of tube amps, and they do tend to add a little bit of colour, and you can change that colour with the different tubes that you put into your amplifiers or preamplifiers normally. This isn't going to do that. It is transparent, it is neutral, it is clean, but it is not thin. No, if the track has lots of body, this will play back the body. If you've got a good front end, you'll hear the good front end. Equally, you'll hear bad recordings as well. It's going to tell the truth of what's going on in the music. As you move forward into the treble, this is perhaps an area where traditionally Class D didn't do very well. So you either had slightly brittle treble and upper mid-range, or you had quite rolled off treble and mid-range to kind of hide the brittle and slightly edgy nature of it. None of that here. This is a really good top end. It's got plenty of extension and it is not at all brittle or edgy in any way. It's very smooth but not forced in any way. It sounds great. How about imaging and soundstage? Well, you get a great soundstage. It's not as wide as I've had on some tube amps. It's not as deep as some amplifiers I've had in the past, but it does give a good sense of depth. I don't think it's kind of extended in any way to feel unnatural, but the soundstage is great. The imaging is great also. So far, so good. So what's wrong with this? Is this the perfect product, you say? No, it's not a perfect product. Apart from the looks and the heaviness and the fact that it's a bit ugly. It does have a slight annoyance, and that for me is the way that it doesn't quite treat decay in a natural way as some amplifiers do. What do I mean by that? Well, all right, when you hit a drum or you hit a cymbal and you get that fading noise, it just slowly fades away, and sometimes it overlaps into other notes or drum hits as well. Here, that decay is there, it's present, but it just clips or stops it just a tad too soon, and that isn't as natural sounding as some Class A, Class AB and tube amplifiers I've had. Now, it's an interesting debate here, because is that decay that we're hearing, say, through a tube amp actually just a little bit of reverb or a little bit of added colour from the amplifier itself? Was it existent on the original recording? I don't know, but I do know that I like a little bit of decay, just to feel a little bit more natural in the end of notes, and this does not give it that decay ending. It clips it just a little too soon. So that's the biggest weakness, I think, of this stereo amplifier. However, you might actually quite like the fact that it doesn't do that. And in fact, on electronic music, on any form of dance music or electronica or electronic rock, this is brilliant. Transient attack, stop-start nature, grip of that bass, it is excellent. However, if you're listening to orchestral music, to percussion, this might not do it for you. You might want to seek other alternatives. Let's talk about what those alternatives might be. I already mentioned the Mytek Brooklyn Amplifier Plus, a very different Class D amplifier. The upgraded version of the original Brooklyn, much smaller, far prettier, still very powerful, but what's the difference in sound? Well, for the Mytek, you're not getting as much grip. Even though the power specs are similar, you're not getting as much grip as you get from the Purify module. And here, you don't get that sense of dark background either. The Purify module really is the real deal for dark background and lack of noise and distortion. The music just appears from pretty much anywhere in the room, and it's really, really good. The Mytek still is low noise, but you can tell that this is a step above it. I think as well, the Mytek, what it does with the mid-range, it adds a little bit of colour. It actually sets the mid-range further back in the mix, giving it a slight sense of depth that this perhaps doesn't convey in the same way, but this is more natural. The Mytek perhaps feels a little bit more constructed. And of course, in the top end, the Mytek is quite airy and gives you a nice sense of place and a nice big wide soundstage, which this is slightly narrower and perhaps has more body over airiness. But again, I prefer the presentation here. The presentation here changes depending on what you put in front of it. It's very neutral, it's very transparent. The Mytek, although it also is quite transparent and neutral, it doesn't have the ability to convey everything as easily as the NAD. The NAD, for me, is cheaper, it's better, I prefer this product. Although the Mytek definitely has its place because of its size and ease of use, whereas this is easy to use, of course, when it's all plugged in, but lugging the thing around is annoyingly difficult, and it's not nearly as nice on a shelf. I would pick the Mytek if I had a desk set up, for example. This, you would not put on a desk unless your desk was the size of Manhattan. Other amplifiers. Well, the ones that come to mind that probably are worth comparing are my reference tube amplifier. That of course is £6,000, so 3 times the cost of this. That does decay brilliantly. That gives a much bigger sound stage. It sounds like there's a lot more going on in the sort of atmosphere. But this one is better than that one for bass by a mile. This one is far more transparent. And this one is always in control. Not that the synthesis is out of control, but it is only 50 watts. So the power here does play a big part of it. And finally, I think the Shit Azure at the other end of the scales, a power amplifier which is half the price of this. It is very nice, but it is only 20 watts of power. And really, if you want to power a very sensitive speaker, definitely audition the Azure as well. But it's adding colour definitely compared to this, because it's got a slight warmth to it, which is very nice and sounds very good. But I think with this you're getting more detail and definitely a lot more oomph to kick along the music. I think the reason I brought up the Shit Azure is because Shit are about to launch their monoblocks, the Tier, and I would love to compare a pair of Tiers for 3,000 versus one of these. I think that would be a very interesting prospect indeed. We'll see what we can do. Anyway, in summary, I love it. It's great. If you're looking for a stereo power amplifier that's got the goods, look no further. This is a fantastic product. Class D has arrived. The future is now. This is great. A fantastic piece of kit. If you've liked this review and you'd like to like and subscribe, please do, because we'd love to see you again. And we've got plenty more coming up over the next couple of months. So we'll see you back here very soon.